Hey, everybody.
Hey, y'all.
Welcome back to another fantastic edition of the His and Her Money Show. I'm Talib.
And I'm Ty. And again, we're from hisandhermoney.com. Super excited for today's episode. We know that you guys are going to thoroughly enjoy it.
Y'all love when we do these here debt-free stories where we bring real people that paid off real debt so that you can see that it can be your reality as well.
You all want to make sure that you all listen to this one because I'm super excited. Not only did they just pay off their consumer debt, but also their mortgage, but they're also going to be teaching you how to save and think like a millionaire. So super excited about that.
Oh, yeah. Let's get into it. So today's guest, a young lady by the name of Lindsey, and she's here to share her incredible journey to financial freedom. So we can't wait for you guys to hear her story and learn some of her advice. Hey, Lindsey.
Hey, Lindsey.
Welcome to the His and Her Money Show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
We're excited to have you here, man, because you and your husband have done some incredible things with your money. And we know that a lot of people will be able to get hope and inspiration and education by the journey that you have walked. But for those who are being introduced to you for the very first time right here, right now, can you just say hello to everybody and let them know what you're all about?
Well, hello, everybody. I am Lindsey from bighouseinthewoods.com, and I like to inspire people to look at their money differently, to not see what all they can get out of it as far as buying things, but how they can improve their life by paying off debt, retiring early, whatever their goals are. And so that's what I'm about.
Awesome. So you said that you like to inspire people to think differently about your money.
Yes.
Who inspired you?
You know, I have given that a lot of thought, and I've rolled that around in my mind for a long time. And I'm going to say that there was no person who inspired us. We're Christians, and we just don't like debt. It's not something that we wanted the burden from. We don't know anyone else really who took the path we took. So at that time, this was 2009, 2010 when we started that journey. I don't know. Did people blog then?
I'm sure there were a couple out there.
But so it wasn't like today where you could really, at least it wasn't for us, where we could get inspiration from blogs and podcasts, and so it was just really this inner drive, I guess, from the Lord that, spurred us toward living differently.
Yeah. What's so amazing about your story is that you all are and were millennials, and you all were able to not just pay off all your debt, but also your mortgage before the age of 25.
Man.
So let's talk about what were the first steps? You were inspired by God. You were inspired by your Christian walk, your faith. You knew that you all wanted differently. How did you all actually take those feelings, those thoughts, and turn it into action?
Okay, well, for starters, I graduated college with student loan debt. Not a ton, but I had student loan debt, and I have a degree in early childhood education. And so when I got out of college, I taught first grade. Anyone who knows any teachers knows that I made beans for a living. I worked my tail off and made not much money. But after college, that first year, I moved back in with my parents so that I could focus on paying off that student loan debt. I had a friend who told me in college, she said, don't worry about it. Just pay $25 a month for the rest of your life. It's not a big deal. As long as you're paying $25 a month, they can't touch you. I rolled that around in my mind for about 30 seconds and decided I really hated that. So I moved in with my parents after college so that I could put every penny I possibly could towards that debt to pay it off as fast as I could, because it felt heavy. It felt like a physical burden on my shoulders. And when I met and married my husband, I only had $2,000 left to go, that's monumental on a teacher income. And I was also paying a car payment, which I had kind of inherited from my mom. So, student loan debt and car payment. Thankfully, rent was free and food was free because I would have starved to death.
And what was the starting point for the debt? How much was the debt in the beginning?
I've tried to think back, and I want to say it was about 15,000, 10 to 15. So in a year's time, paying that and my car, I was able to pay it down to about 2. Yeah. And then my husband, Mr. Smarty Pants, went to college on a full ride. Living expenses and books and food and all that. So he graduated with no debt whatsoever. And when I met him, it was after he had been not teaching, but working for a year or two already. And he had a good job with a good paycheck, and the coworkers that he had were using that good paycheck to inflate their lifestyle. So new cars, big houses, the vacations, the stuff, the eating out for lunch all the time. But he was not doing that. And that was one of the things that was so impressive to me, was that he was renting an older home in an older neighborhood, a cheap home that the landlord could have actually done some work on if he wanted to. But he was using that money and driving the same old truck he had always driven, and he was just saving as much as he could. And that was kind of where we started. Me paying off the student loan debt, him banking as much money as he possibly could.
Legal & General America is a leader in low-cost, high-quality life insurance.
For nearly 70 years, Legal & General America has been providing financial protection to over 1.3 million families and businesses.
LGA makes understanding and applying for life insurance easy.
And agents are standing by to help you find the best coverage to fit your family's needs.
All you have to do is go to hisandhermoney.com/LGA to get a free quote now. So what I love about your story reminds me a little bit of my story. I tell a lot of people who are not currently married. We have a lot of people that are not married that watch our show and listen to our show, have a desire to be married. And I always tell them, make sure that you utilize these years, because you don't have to be accountable to your spouse when you're not married.
Right.
And so you can literally take charge of your own money, tell your money where to go, and utilize these years to get your financial affairs in order. And so
That's
for
exactly
me,
right.
I was able to go to college completely debt free. I remember having the thought, I knew one day I wanted to get married. I didn't want to have the burden of debt on my marriage.
Yes.
So I tried to handle my finances in a responsible way prior to marriage. Talk about how that helped your marriage before your marriage even started. Like the fact that you were able to move back in with your parents, you made sacrifices, you did what you had to do to get this debt down to $2,000, how that actually gave your marriage a head start.
I think it would have been, I want to speak for my husband here and say that for him, it would have felt like a huge burden. I know that he loved me, and, we would have gotten married regardless. But had I brought tens of thousands of dollars worth of debt into our marriage, and he had spent so long trying to save that much, it would have been hard, because his savings, his hard work would have immediately went to paying off the hole that I had dug or tried not to get out of. So I would have started us off immediately on flat ground or still in a bit of a debt hole. We wouldn't be where we are today because of that. And what you were saying about taking advantage of the years before you get married, I received bad advice that thankfully I did not take before I was married. I was fresh out of college, moved back in with my parents, and people told me that I should buy a house. Why are you living with your parents? You should buy a house. Well, I had no down payment. I had no extra money to put toward a mortgage. I would have had I not been paying so much toward my student loan. But the advice I was given was pay less toward your student loan, buy a house because it's a good investment. And in a way, yes, it is a good investment, but that doesn't mean it was a good investment for me at that time. And that would have been a huge mistake for me. So moving back in with my parents, even though some people may not want to do that, after college or whenever, it really did give me that time to, meet my goal of paying down as much debt as I could. And, if someone can't move back in with their parents, there are different decisions that you can make that lower your cost of living during those single years so that you can meet your debt payoff goals. I am like a huge fan of the tiny house movement and people who,
I am too. Oh my
yes,
gosh. I
Here
love
we
watching
go.
those videos.
Here we go.
but I mean,
Eat it up.
people who live in their vans,
Yep.
who make it awesome, but it's inexpensive to live that way, or school buses or box trucks or just a small house in general that's not on wheels. There are better decisions you can make than the status quo advice that you normally get of, oh, just go get a mortgage. Everybody does it.
Legal & General America is a leader in low-cost, high-quality life insurance.
For nearly 70 years, Legal & General America has been providing financial protection to over 1.3 million families and businesses.
LGA makes understanding and applying for life insurance easy.
And agents are standing by to help you find the best coverage to fit your family's needs.
All you have to do is go to hisandhermoney.com/LGA to get a free quote now.
Now, you all, after having these hearts to avoid debt or to get out of debt as fast as possible in your singleness, now you guys are getting married. You guys are becoming one, and everything now becomes accountable to the other. And you guys make a decision that now, like you got the advice earlier, was get a house, and that wasn't a good time. But now you guys are starting to think, now it might be time for us to get a house. But you guys took a different approach in even calculating or formulating in your minds how much house you can afford. Can you break down your approach to even finding that first house?
Before we get to that question, I want you to be able to finish the remainder $2,000. So was that paid off as soon as you all got married because your husband saved and then going to the home?
Yes, my sweet man paid it off. So that was one of the first things he did after we got married, is he paid off the rest of that student loan bill so that I could be done with that forever. And that was a wonderful day. Send in that last check.
Awesome.
But yes, when it came time to buy the house, so here was the deal. When I met him, he was renting an inexpensive house. The rent was $600 a month. So for my area, that is cheap. I mean, it's probably cheap for any area, but it's cheap here. Rent for a decent house now is probably around, $1,200, $1,500, But like I said, this was in an older neighborhood. The house really wasn't all that great, but he picked it on purpose, which is, I think, the point here is he didn't have to live in an older home that needed work and the landlord wasn't doing the work. He wanted to live there because the rent was inexpensive and he could save a lot of his paycheck. Like I said before, his coworkers were buying and renting very expensive homes, and he just never had that urge for stuff, like some people. He's really blessed with that he feels no need to compete with anyone. He doesn't need to keep up with anybody. So anyway, I met him. I moved into that house. I painted it. I patched holes. I cooked on the stove that only 2 of 4 burners were working, but we loved it. We were newly married and we loved our little old house. At that time, however, that was 2009, the government was actually offering a first-time home buyer's incentive. And it was up to, I believe, $8,000 credit that you would get if you bought a home. So even though our goal in the beginning was to save all the cash we needed to buy a house, we wanted no mortgage whatsoever. However, when they offered this incentive, we started calculating because we were paying around $7,000 a year in rent. So if we could buy a house, a cheap house, we would save the $7,000 in rent, and we would actually get around $8,000 from the government to do it, basically. So like I said before, thankfully we live in a state where houses are just not all that expensive, but we still went for, I think it was a 1973, 1980 house, an older home in a small neighborhood, and it was a $73,000 house. We had it figured that with the money he had saved by living so frugally, that we could put $30,000 down on that house. And that left our mortgage payments at $400 a month, which is cheaper than rent.
Cheaper than the rent.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So tell everybody what state you're in.
Arkansas. So our goal was, even he had a good paying job at the time, but it was kind of contract work. So there's no guarantee. And that's the thing, is that even if your job is good and stable now, that doesn't mean it always will be. So if we bought a house, we wanted to make sure that the mortgage would be lower than rent. So even if he lost his job and had to start over looking for a job, we could still pay it. So we put $30,000 down, and we took out a mortgage for $43,000, and it was a 15-year mortgage. And I still remember going to the bank and talking to the loan officer about it, and just asking the same question but 50 different ways. Can we pay this off early? Is there a penalty? You know, we're newbies here. We want to make sure you're not going to hold us to 15 years. Can we pay $400 this month and $2,000 that month? And over, she's like, yes, you can pay it off early. So we got home and we got our amortization schedule, which I was in love with that schedule. I was highlighting it, and I was calculating every month, you know, looking at our bank account and what we had saved, how much money can we put toward this mortgage, and how quickly can it be paid off. And it became just this, you know, sick drive that we had to pay it off early, and we paid it off in 13 months.
Whoa.
So you're going to have to tell everybody how. Everybody wants to know, how did you all pay off $43,000 in 13 months?
Okay, so first off, I should mention that after we got married, I quit teaching and I became a homemaker. So we're down to one income, which is his, which is decent, but still easy to blow. We would I would print out a spreadsheet and post it on the front of the refrigerator every month. And I would write down our bills, our mortgage, our water, our electric, the cell phone bill, whatever it was that was every month, this had to be paid. And I would put that there because we knew, I mean, you can't live without water. And then there would be another column for groceries, how much we spent on groceries. And then there's another section that was just open where I would write down other things that we spent that month. So if we bought something off Amazon or eBay, or if we had to buy tires or whatever it was. And so every month after the month was over, I would go back and I would look at that list and I would highlight, and I would be like, you spent $3 on Amazon. What was this? You know? And he's like, well, it was whatever it was, obviously not important for $3. And we would decide we're not going to spend those $3 again next month. Or how can we get our cell phone bill lower? So we actually canceled my cell phone and ended up getting a home phone with a cord, you know, because it was cheaper than my cell phone, and it worked out great. I was home anyway as a homemaker, and nobody was texting me, and it was peaceful. We did not have internet. So, you know, in the dark ages, we cut back on groceries. I wrote a whole article about that, actually, about how we knew how much a cup of flour cost. I would buy the 5-pound bag, divide it out per cup. So I knew exactly down to the penny, pretty much, how much was going into every single meal that I cooked. So we had pancakes 2 nights a week. I still do. I make everything from scratch. So no boxed food. I mean, we buy cereal now, but we didn't buy cereal then. We bought eggs, and we didn't eat meat because meat's expensive, and we didn't eat cheese because cheese is expensive. So we ate, vegetables and rice and a lot of beans and homemade bread and fruit, but not expensive fruit. We didn't buy pineapple that was out of season. We waited till it was in season, and Walmart marks it down to 99 cents, stuff like that. And we try to eat healthy, but at the time we weren't allotting money for organic. So we would, one of the things I wrote about was the clean 15 and the dirty dozen, and we would eat the clean 15 and not worry about spending the extra money on organic until we had met our goal. So it was a lot of that. It was a lot of how can we cut expenses, even $3? How can we cut even $3? And, the funny thing was I was cooking from scratch, and I was sending meals to work with my husband every day for his lunch because he wasn't eating out. He doesn't like to eat out, period, but he most definitely was not going to eat out when we were trying to meet these goals. So I would make him a lunch, and he could heat it up. And his coworkers were always jealous of the food he was bringing. I mean, I'm not, Martha Stewart or anything, but they were not getting home cooked meals, so they were so jealous. And one day, one of his coworkers said, Lindsey ought to sell lunches. And I thought, okay, why not? So I made up a little menu one week of what I would cook every day for lunch. And if you wanted a lunch, it was $5. And I bought
very reasonable. Yeah. That's cheaper than eating out. They were I'll take it. And it's healthier.
Way less than going to a drive-thru.
My gosh.
But it was homemade, and I knew what it cost me to make it. So I was making money even at $5.
Can you break that down for somebody that's listening to that? For every meal that you would sell for $5, how much did it cost you to make it?
Well, I would say I was making at least $3 off of every meal.
That adds up.
Yeah, sometimes maybe $3.25 or so if the meal involved beans or rice. Then that's a cheap food, and beans are very filling. But it also saved me cost, which means my profit was more. But I did buy those foam, styrofoam takeout containers, and so my husband we lived really close to his work. So he would come home at lunch, and he would eat his lunch, and I would pack up everybody else's lunch hot, and he would drive it back to work. So we did that for a little while. I mean, I'm not going to say I made a ton because I didn't do it all that long, but it was fun, and it put, a little extra money into the bank account. And, so we cut expenses. I cooked meals. We cut out internet. We cut out my cell phone. We cut out unneeded things. When it was Thanksgiving and we went over to our families, and they're like, hey, there's leftover turkey and dressing, and we're going to throw it away. We're like, hey, we'll take that home. So, shamelessly just taking home leftovers from family events, and I think the craziest part about it is that we didn't have to, we didn't have to set this goal. We had money in the bank account, but we were choosing to live differently on purpose. And one thing to remember is when you set a goal and you're living frugally, there are going to be people who don't back you up. There are people who think you're cheap, and you and I both know there's a difference between cheap and frugal, and there's going to be people who don't understand why you don't go out for lunch, who don't understand why you don't just go buy a house or a new car or whatever. But it's important to surround yourself with people who do understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. Or listening to amazing podcasts.
Absolutely. The His and Her Money Show on all platforms.
There you go.
What you need to hear is that what's similar about Lindsey's story in our story of being rid of our mortgage. It's a death by 1,000 cuts.
Whatever it took.
It's death by 1,000
We didn't
cuts.
minimize
Everybody's
the
looking
pennies.
for this big deal strategy. It's death by 1,000. We started our journey with an extra $20 principal payment.
Yep.
That's how it started, guys.
Yes.
That's how it started. Lindsey's selling lunches
and
for
only
$5 a pop.
$3, and people may be like, "Oh, that's not enough."
It all adds up.
It adds up.
We got rid of cable. We might have saved $60, $70 a month.
That's right. We've never had cable.
Yeah.
We don't have cable now.
See, we watch YouTube.
You keep stacking it. You keep stacking all these cuts on top of each other. And next thing you know, you're looking up. You're making that last payment.
That's incredible.
Exactly right. And
incredible.
We paid it off and went on a cruise the next month.
Just like that.
And I'm sure that cruise felt like
it was good.
Oh, I know it was.
It was good. I remember the Friday that we mailed our last payment, and my husband's parents lived 3.5 hours away from us. So we mailed that last payment on Friday, and we were going to go up that weekend to visit them. And on the way, we stopped and ate at a restaurant, and we bought an appetizer and sweet tea.
And sweet tea.
Can't forget the sweet tea.
Yes, and you all deserve that.
We did. We just, it felt good. It would not have felt good if we had the debt still hanging on, and I think that is part of the drive that can sometimes drive people, is keeping in mind how good that meal will taste, how good that vacation will feel when there's no baggage with it.
Absolutely. And the feeling does not dissipate. Like, we've been sitting in our paid off home for over 5 years, right? A little over 5 years. No,
4.
We're get 5 years.
It'll be 4 this year.
4. Feels like 5. And it still does not get old. We go on vacations. We are very, very much so aware that we're doing it without having the baggage of debt.
100%.
So you all, the feeling is priceless. It's worth it. Every sacrifice that you're making, it is not in vain. Keep going. That's why we bring you all stories such as Lindsey.
Going.
To be able to inspire you. So you all also had another huge goal. You guys saved $180,000 by the time you all were 30.
Whoa. Don't say that too fast.
$180,000
$180,000 saved.
Okay. Yeah. And had kids, y'all.
That's what I want you to talk about as well, too, because sometimes people are like, how can you do this and you have children? It can be
on a single income.
It can be done.
Let's not forget that part of the story, people.
True.
We've got 3 of those babies now. Well, after we paid off that first house, part of the first-time home buyers incentive stipulations was that you had to stay there for at least 3 years. It had to be your primary residence. You had to stay for at least 3 years. To mention something, though, we paid off that mortgage in 13 months. We only paid $2,000 in interest on that mortgage. And so we made money doing it because the government gave us about $8,000 to do it. So we lost nothing. We stayed there for 3 years. That whole time, we were still living frugally. We started buying cheese again, and meat, but not as much. We weren't where we wanted to be yet. So we still had the one cell phone. In fact, I didn't get my own cell phone again. I didn't choose to get one until last year. And mostly just for the hotspot so I could have internet, but we still lived frugally. We had our first baby at that house. And I have always cloth diapered all 3 babies. All of their clothes come from, yard sales or thrift stores, and we buy good used clothes. We buy good used shoes. They don't look raggedy, but we don't take the hit. I remember when our first child was born and my father-in-law wanted to buy her an outfit. My mother-in-law had just passed away, and so he was, a grandpa trying to do it on his own, and we went to the mall because he didn't know what to do, so he wanted me to pick something out, and I just could not. we went to the children's place or something, and I was looking at price tags, and I was like, I just can't ask you to do this. It made me sick for him, the prices on children's clothes. But we just, we, like I said, we cloth diapered, we bought clothes from thrift stores or garage sales. I continued to cook from scratch. We did not buy baby food. I made her food. My husband kept taking his lunches to work. And so that whole 3 years of living in that first house, we were just saving. And after 3 years, we decided that we were ready to move. We were ready to step up. We had saved the cash to help us step up to another house. And so we looked until we found another house. Actually, the second house we bought was older, but a little bigger, with a little bit bigger yard. It was on a half acre, which is pretty good for in town. And we bought that house with cash, house number 2, and we stayed there.
And how much was that?
Let's not just glance over that.
How much was that home?
Lindsey, you bought a house with cash.
Okay. This is just becoming normal at this point. Yeah. House number 2 was, here's my husband. How much was house number 2? $85,000.
Incredible.
But we didn't spend all of our money on it. But it was what we wanted. It only cost $85,000.
Incredible.
So we bought it with cash. It was even closer to my husband's work. And like I said, a bigger yard and a little bit bigger house. And, oh yeah, something to mention. He's reminding me here. Y'all are going to love this. While we were living at our first house and saving money, he lost his job.
Oh, wow.
He lost his job a month before our first baby was going to be born.
Oh, that's some stress.
No, actually, not really.
I don't think so. They didn't have any debt and they had savings.
Just a thought, though.
I mean, maybe we're stupid enough to think that sounds adventurous. But we knew that the way his job works, that he would, and the union and whatever, he would have callback rights for 2 years, so he could get called back. So we were just riding it out. We had the savings. We owed nothing. We had saved or paid the house off at that point. Our cars were paid for, so there was nothing going out except the electric bill and the water bill, basically. And so we just lived off of our savings, and he was laid off for a year and 3 months. So he was home with the baby and me for a year and 3 months. And, so that was part of the journey and what I talked about before about your job not being certain and not stretching your paycheck to the max, was that you never know what's going to happen. And
this is an important point.
Yes.
Because you guys weren't lucky. You guys worked with this scenario in mind.
That's so true.
At a point in your life where everything was fine, you thought about this scenario where things might not be fine, and you continue to sacrifice. You continue to put money up. You didn't upgrade your lifestyle because you knew that this could be a possibility. You were proactive in your thinking.
That's right.
That's what you all need to hear from this part of the story.
Man, I wish your husband was on, because I would love to hear from a male's perspective. I know as men, the providers of the home, did he ever feel any type of weight? And if he didn't, was it because he was putting the proper steps in place? Because we teach about making sure that you all have the right behaviors and habits in place, right? Because you don't know what the future will hold. So because you all had the right behaviors and habits already in place, when your husband lost his job, you just continued those same behavior and habits.
That's right.
It was almost like you all lost nothing.
Right. He's standing here, and I asked him, I said, "Do you want to come on the show with me?" He's like,
"No.
But
you're the man of the hour."
They want to hear from you. They want to know if you felt pressure when you lost your job.
And the man as the provider of the home. How good did it feel?
He's saying he felt no pressure.
It felt good
because he had
his...
saved and laid down the groundwork in the beginning.
Yes.
So he did
Powerful.
not put us in a position of stress and anxiety by upgrading our lifestyle to the point where we couldn't pay for it, because the whole point was, we knew from the beginning, if he lost his job, he wanted to be able to go to the grocery store and work there or wherever and keep us afloat. And he could have, because at that point we needed money for food and, car insurance, stuff like that,
Yeah.
And his coworkers, several of his coworkers also lost their jobs, and they would only be able to survive one loss of paycheck with the way they live. In fact, sometimes the way they're, all their paychecks get direct deposited, most of them, when we do have that set up that way, it makes a difference for them if it gets direct deposited at noon or midnight. It matters. Because they're stretched that far.
Yes.
Wow.
And, they're like, everybody's working from home at this point. So they're on Skype chatting, like, did yours get deposited? Mine hasn't, and when does it get deposited? And my husband's like, in fact, I have no idea. I do not know when it comes into the account. I just know that it does. But it doesn't matter if it's noon or midnight,
That's a real thing. Like, I remember, especially when I was working in the bank, people would be like, where is my money? I'm like, Saturday's considered Monday's place of business. So if they didn't deposit it before then, I'm sorry, you won't get it until Tuesday or Wednesday. It was like a huge thing,
a big deal.
And then I remember you didn't even know when we got paid. You'd be like, oh, we got paid this Friday. And it's like, oh yeah, we sure did get paid this Friday.
We went through the same thing when I was working outside the home. Remember, there was a glitch in our system
where nobody got paid.
Nobody got their paycheck.
We didn't even know it
because something happened with the payroll processing. And the only reason I found out, because everybody at work was talking about it and they were stressed. I'm like, oh, we didn't get paid.
I know. But, I do understand, and I am sensitive to the fact that some people are in that position where it matters. And it's beyond their control.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think the purpose of us sharing our story is just to show you all, all these little steps that you're putting in place is not in vain. You can definitely get to the place where you don't even know if it's payday. That's what we want for you, honestly, where you're not counting on payday. You're not counting on payday.
Yeah.
And I think the point is too, that for anyone who has the opportunity where you've got 20 extra bucks a week or whatever it is, don't put yourself in that position where the exact minute of your direct deposit matters.
Yes.
Like y'all talked about, an extra $20. Like, do that for yourself. Don't go to Sonic and get lunch. Put it toward the mortgage or whatever debt it is.
Oh, yeah.
But back to house number 2. So we had saved while living in house number 1. We found a bigger house, bigger yard, moved into house number 2, and paid cash for it at $85,000. But we sold house number 1 to help fund house number 2. And in fact, we sold our first house because my husband was still laid off. And so we were going to move to a different part of the state near his family. And we bought land up there. I can't remember. He left now. I can't remember what we paid for that land. We bought 10 acres up there, cash again. And he's down the hall. $23,000 is what we paid for land in cash. And we were going to build a house up there. We sold our house. And I want to say it was like the next day he got called back to his job and we had no home. So we had 2 weeks to find house number 2, and the Lord just provided, because we had been looking, and even in our $85,000 price range, we were just finding stuff where it was beat up so bad, the garage door was falling off, there had been a chimney fire. I mean, just not good stuff. And then all of a sudden there's just this diamond in the rough that the Lord provided. It was an older home. It was sound. It was a 2-car garage, which we had not had before. And it was perfect. And so we ended up just continuing to save until we made it to that $180,000 mark before we were 30. And then we bought more land, so we still own the land in the western part of the state. We bought 5 acres because our ultimate goal was to build on land near my husband's work. And so we ended up buying 5 acres close to his work since it's a little more stable now. And we built our dream home for cash, which is where we are now.
That's incredible.
All right, let's break it down. So there was 10 acres in one place, 5 acres in another. So do you still own the 10?
Yes.
We do, yes.
What's the plan for that?
Right now, when we bought it, it actually had hookups for, I think there was a mobile home on it before. It had been moved off. And then someone had lived there in their camper. And so it had camper hookups. It had sewer, water, and electric. And so while he was laid off, we actually lived up there in a camper with our infant and just had a brief adventure up there. But now there is a man who rents it out. And he's lived there for a couple years now. And he's just a single guy, lives in his camper on our 10 acres, and easy life for him. So we just rent it out at this point, and we're just going to let it sit there until if maybe the day comes when we can move there.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. So you all were able to build your dream home with cash. Did you all sell home number 2 to be able to throw on the dream home?
Correct. We sold house number 2. And before we did, though, we actually built a garage on our new land. And we were going to live in the garage while we were building the house because we needed to sell house number 2 to help fund the dream home. We had 2 kids at that point. I had actually just given birth to our son. And we had this dumb idea to live in the garage with our 2 babies. But, we had it plumbed and everything. So it had a small kitchen and all. We did contract our dream home ourselves. So we saved that money. So we hired all of the framers and the concrete guys, and we were just on the phone all of that time, scheduling it all. And we drew the plans ourselves, and we saved like how much? Yeah, we saved about $80,000 by contracting it ourselves.
Wow, that's awesome.
Right.
That's
and
incredible.
so thankfully, though, we did not end up living in the garage because where we built it was woods, and it's still woods. We just cleared out enough for the house, but it's actually, we didn't know until we started clearing. It's the home of scorpions too. And so that first summer in the garage, we were just working. We weren't living in it full time. We were just coming over to work and move stuff. I think we killed over 80 scorpions in the garage.
Freaked all the way out.
You know it. And so we knew right then that living there, just me living there as a single person, I would lose my mind.
Yes.
But we had
babies.
So my grandfather, it's a tangled web here. My grandfather moved in after my grandmother died. He moved in with my parents. And so his house was vacant, and they offered the house to us to live there for the 6 months while we built our house. So we were able to go to a scorpion-free house and live there while we contracted our own home. And we did as much of the work as we knew how ourselves. So my husband took on the main job of contracting and lining out everyone. And I tiled showers and painted and hung interior doors, just anything we could possibly do to save a little bit, we did. And so here we are. We've been here for 4 years.
So the question of the hour is, what happened to the scorpions?
Well, after we established our dominance, they decided to move back to the woods.
They knew that you all were at your own home. This was your
We're
home.
like, listen, y'all, we're not playing games. Y'all have to move. But yeah, it took a couple years. It after the first year, it died down a little bit, and then it's become less and less. So it's just a few here and there during the summer only. So we love winter.
That's awesome. So you are definitely inspiring so many people that are listening to your story right now, just showing literally step by step how you all started small and you gradually kept,
it's not an accident, a bunch of
exactly.
intentional steps.
And then
Yes.
you were able to build your dream home. Did you all ever figure out the total, how much it cost to actually build your dream home? Because you
How
all
much
pay
did
cash.
we spend,
You all
babe,
pay cash.
on the house? How much did we? About $50 a foot. It's 2,300 square feet. And because I remember we talked about what a contractor would charge to build it, and we got an estimate. And what did that? My husband's here. What did the contractor say it would cost us? Was it $120 a square foot to build it? I think it was around $120 a square foot to build the house, and we built it for about $50 a square foot.
Wow.
So I don't have my calculator up, but
Little
somewhere around $100,000, I think, to build it.
Mhm.
That's
Cash.
amazing.
That's incredible. And you all taught yourself how to tile flooring.
And you're
all that.
sitting
Oh
on
my
acres.
God.
It's not just
YouTube
a house,
videos,
but you got
y'all.
the land.
YouTube
that's
videos.
right, YouTube.
My husband's like, we don't know how to do that. I'm like, there's a YouTube video.
For it. That's right. That's right. That's right. So now you all's ultimate goal is to be able to retire at the age of 45, and you all are
Yes.
doing it by living
Yes.
like millionaires, saving like millionaires,
Yes.
and being frugal like millionaires. Talk about your plan there.
Okay, so we're in our dream home now, and we're still saving. One thing I have found very interesting when you research a lot of millionaires is that they don't live as extravagantly as we all think. Of course, there are some, who are all over Instagram or whatever it is people do, and, they're living it up. But I don't believe that is the case for most self-made millionaires. A lot of people have heard about Warren Buffett, who, has always lived in the first home he ever bought, I believe it was. And, these millionaires who drive used cars. And I read an interview one time about this person who was like a nanny, I think, for, several millionaire families, and was so shocked when she found out that they bought clothes at thrift stores or, Walmart shoes or whatever it was. So the point in saving like a millionaire or living like a millionaire is to not try to keep up with those people on social media, celebrities or whoever it is, who are posting pictures of their lavish homes or vacations or whatever it is. That's not the goal. Those people are not the goal. Those people don't know how to manage money. Your goal is the people who have so much money in the bank, but you would never know because they live like you and me. And it's, Arkansas is the home of Walmart. And I've read Sam Walton's book all about him and how he lived and how he drove the same old truck forever. And even when Walmart was making so much money and he was so profitable and well off, that he was still, living in small homes and just, banking it. I don't know what the Walton family does now, but, his story and so many stories of people who have created their own wealth, they don't spend it on yachts and sports cars, and you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it is, no matter where someone starts in their debt-free journey, your goal, in my opinion, is to get to the point where you've paid off your debt and you lived frugally, no matter who thinks you're cheap or who thinks you're crazy. But to get to the point where you can live debt free and you continue to save money and you've got money in the bank account that nobody knows about. So it's just that little bit of grin. You know what I mean? When people are like, even when you're debt free and you've got the money and you can do whatever you want, you've achieved your goal, possibly whatever that is, and still people see you not going to lunch and whatever, and they think you're being cheap, and you can just have a little chuckle on the inside, because you know that you've set yourself up better.
100%. 100%. I think that is something that is a mindset shifter, because we all are inundated with images of what we perceive millionaire lifestyle to look like. And a lot of it is fake.
That's so true.
And phony.
So fake. So we're on a path right now to retire by the time we're 45 is the goal. So we continue to live frugally, and my husband. Which is
how many years? Like, how old are you all now? So how many years is that?
I'll be 35 in 3 days.
Nice.
I hope nobody knows otherwise. But my husband's giving me a thumbs up. I quit calculating. But yes, 35. So we've got 10 years to go. And I do have a website, but at this point it's just a hobby, so it doesn't contribute to our income at all. So we're just, still doing what we do on his one income, and we save it and he invests some of it. We do have a credit card that we do not carry a balance on, but we charge everything to that card. We bought a minivan years ago, a used one for around $8,000, charged it on the credit card, got the cash back. And so we use those points and the cash back to go on cruises. We've been on 10 so far.
Nice.
But if you have the self-control for a credit card, and a lot of people don't, and that's okay, just don't have it. But if you do, there are ways that you can work it to your advantage. And so we put everything on our credit card, our health insurance, our car insurance, our groceries, whatever it is goes onto the card. We pay it in full every month, and we rack up the points. So we've never, ever paid one penny in interest on that. So that's kind of, I'm sure you guys know too, that's just kind of a hack for extra money, or to pay for a vacation for free.
Yep.
You're paying your car insurance anyway. So
that's right. Because the credit card companies are banking on people paying them interest. So technically, if you're paying your credit card company, you're paying interest, you're not paying that balance off, you're paying for those points, you're paying for those trips.
Yes.
And we appreciate y'all, because we use the points. So thank y'all for keeping the credit card companies.
No.
I'm just playing.
Guys. He's just joking.
These are jokes. These are jokes, guys.
He's just joking.
We want you guys to not pay interest.
Yes, and make sure that you are also very controlled, because a lot of times when you're using card and you're not using cash, you do tend to spend more. But if you're using it on things that you purchase anyway, your groceries, your insurance, like why not? Your gas, like why not, right?
We charged our entire house.
Yes.
The lumber, the tile, everything.
Oh my gosh, that was so smart. We finished our basement and we did the same thing. Everything was paid on that card. Sometimes the contractor's like, "Oh, I can pay for it," and you can
no, we got it.
We got it.
We want to go on a cruise. We'll actually meet you at the home improvement store and swipe it ourselves. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. Your story has been incredible. You have truly just reinforced the need of making sure that you have good behaviors and habits in place, and don't minimize the small steps, the small count. You made $3 per meal. Somebody would be like, "Oh, that's not enough."
That's not worth my time.
That's not worth my time. Yes, but it adds up. It adds up. Tell everybody how they can stay in contact with you, where they can find you on the web.
Well, my website is bighouseinthewoods.com. And so they can find me there, and I share about our story and then also other frugal living tips, how to save on your groceries, or how we paid off our mortgage to give inspiration, whatever it is. how to save money raising kids. So you can find me there. And I have a new website adventure I started at the beginning of the year, allaboutarkansas.com, for anybody who's in Arkansas and debt free and wants to travel.
That's awesome.
Nice.
We'll be sure to have everything linked in the show notes of this
Thank
episode. If you're watching on YouTube, look in the description underneath this video. Lindsey, thank you so much for being so transparent with your journey and the journey that you're still on, because it just inspired a whole lot of people. And we appreciate you sharing it with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. You're wonderful, and you give hope to so many.
Thank you.
Man, that was incredible.
That was great.
Yo, I hope that y'all took good notes. I hope
Watch
that y'all
this again. Listen
can
to it
find
again.
yourself in this story, because
Yes.
like we said, when you're getting out of debt, it's not one magic bullet.
It's not. And people will question your efforts. People will question, how do you do that on one income? No, it had to be another way. No, you guys, Lindsey's story, her and her husband's story proves to the point, putting those small steps in place, and it will pay off big.
Here's the thing. You can't get to the finish line until you cross the starting line.
That's right.
So what move can you make? Maybe you can't make the biggest move ever, but like Lindsey said, what can you do? There's something you can do. There's something you can cut back. There's some additional amount that you can put on that debt. You got to have a bunch of intentional steps back to back to back to compound on each other to get to that finish line. So we hope that you guys got the inspiration that you needed on your journey to financial freedom. If you have not already done so, subscribe, because we keep bringing this heat because we want you guys to win. So make sure that you're plugged into His and Her Money on all social media at His and Her Money, YouTube at His and Her Money, podcast, the His and Her Money Show, and don't forget the website, hisandhermoney.com. Until next time, guys.
Bye, y'all.
Peace.